Welcome back to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV, where today we're going to be tackling something a little bit interesting. I suppose you could say this is Heavensward's counterpart to 2.0's Crystal Tower, but as of yet, what exactly it is yet to be seen, because it seems to also be the counterpoint to Binding Coil. It certainly plays like Binding Coil. In that, today we are tackling Alexander. Alexander is divided up into 4 different dungeons. Each one of those 4 dungeons is a short dungeon. How in a regular dungeon you typically go through a bunch of mob pulls and a boss, mob pulls boss, mob pulls final boss. Each section of Alexander, we're going to call them Alexander Room 1, Room 2, Room 3, Room 4. Each one of these being classified as its own dungeon, as you can see here, is much shorter than that, really just falling down to one mob pull, and then the boss, or mini-boss, and then a boss. Now for doing this, you actually get some rather nice gear. If memory serves, it's item level 190, and I'm actually wearing the vast majority of it. Though even how it drops is interesting. I'll explain more on that later, though, because the queue is already up. The queue for this was surprisingly short, but maybe that's because I'm doing it on a Wednesday. Who knows when this video is going to go up. Come on, DPS, get your crap together. Now, Alexander being a massive machine, I suppose you could say, our adventure through it is going from part to part, making our way towards its center. Now, Alexander requires, I believe, item level 1 to be I-160 before you can even enter it. I think it's 160 anyway. Now, when you start out, you're going to be buffeted by steam as you run through that room. If you're lucky, you don't get hit by any of it. Regardless, it's not that big a deal. Just keep running through and make your way to Faust, your first mini-boss. Now, Alexander, it drops, I believe the requirement was 160. It drops item level 180 here. How it drops is... I'm just repeating myself because we're going to get to that later. The mini-boss Faust. This is your chance to just wail. Go at him. Do absolutely everything you can. Ignore mechanics. Ignore everything that's going on. And just do as much damage to Faust as you can conceivably do. I, of course, completely fudged over all of my rotations and didn't do anything exactly how I wanted it to do. But I'll live, I guess. As you fight Faust, the main tank, of course, is going to be grabbing him. Faust doesn't do any attacks the DPS need to worry about, nothing you need to dodge or particularly concern yourself with. Just do as much damage as you can. The off tank is going to be grabbing all of the adds. At least I believe that's the off tank. Yes. The off tank is going to be grabbing all of the adds. That'd be really awkward if it wasn't the off tank. And will eventually divulge to the point where he's simply kiting them around, because more and more and more spawn, and if you don't kill Faust fast enough, you can't burn him down. These adds will eventually outnumber you and kill you, which is why in Alexander Savage this becomes a little bit more difficult, because you can't just burn Faust, or at least not to my knowledge. I've not actually tackled Alexander Savage, and I don't intend to try. Alexander Savage is actually a hard mode of Alexander. It's all the fights, exact same enemies in the exact same order, but much more difficult. I don't know if the mechanics change, or maybe simply the timings or HP of monsters and attack of them changes. To be honest, I know very little about it. I know that when it was first released, people couldn't beat Faust. Like, Alexander 1 mini-boss, and people couldn't beat Faust, so it was hard. I have no intention of tackling Alexander Savage, just so everybody knows. In fact, anymore, there's a couple things I'm not really sure I'm not going to be able to tackle. But that with Faust down, we can move on. Some frickin' kickin' music. And our first real boss. The Oppressor. Now, the Oppressor isn't too difficult to fight, but you do need to coordinate. You can't just blindingly throw yourselves at him, or bad things can happen. Now, at the start of the fight, you only have to worry about the Oppressor himself, so simply run up and wail on him. The lasers you saw fly off there were the tank conal. Gunnery pod, I believe, was the name of that. He's also got a large directional AoE. Gunnery pod is just going to be AoE or raid-wide damage. There it goes again. Raid-wide damage, so that's something that's going to have to be healed through the directional AoE, obviously something you do not want to be hit by. But for the most part, he doesn't do a lot else of note, and you can simply wail on him. For now. Things will get a little bit more complicated shortly, I assure you. There's a number of circular AoEs that drop around the arena. Again, should be simple enough to just dodge out of the way of them, don't stand in them. Followed immediately by the directional attack, so you may be caught out of position. Still not the worst thing in the world. Now, if memory serves, this was emergency deployment, yes. And that actually summons 2 alarms. Now, these guys are something a little more you have to concern yourself with. You see, the longer you have hate on these, and you saw the off-tank actually grab these, the longer you have hate on these, the more stacks of a debuff you get on you, a minimum debuff you get put on you. If you get too many stacks, you will actually have minimum cast on you, making you much smaller and more susceptible to damage, and the whole 9 yards. Also, you'll notice, when they died, they left a little purple circle. Obviously, you don't want to stand in that. However, standing in that will minimize anything in it. This is important not only for you, but for mechanics later on. Now, as he nears 50% of his HP, you actually saw the Oppressor 0.5 wander into the arena, and this is where the off-tank comes in. He'll want to grab these as fast as he can, or grab it as fast as he can, and haul it to the opposite side of the arena. Because if the 2 of them are too close together, you'll see a tether appear between them, and the 2 of them get a buff you most certainly do not want on them. I actually forget what that buff is specifically. I'm not sure if it's damage or simply makes them invulnerable. But it's avoided quite simply by moving them on the opposite sides of the arena from each other. Now, the other hilarious thing, if you watch that missile, is that you saw missiles dropping down into the arena. These are actually signaled by a red line coming straight down from the heavens. This red line will signify where that missile is going to hit, and if it does hit, it's going to effectively wipe the raid. You can solve that because the boss summons an alarm just beforehand, which you can grab, drag to where that line is, and kill, so that minimum circle is right there. When the missile bomb gets close enough to it, the bomb will actually get minimized and make an adorable little sound as it explodes and does very little damage to anyone. Now, after an amount of time, maybe it's part of a rotation, maybe it's on a timer, the Oppressor and 0.5 will both fly up into the air, shooting out exhaust below them. This will do damage to anybody nearby, so do get away from them. And shortly thereafter, they'll crash back down to the ground. You'll see the 2 marks where they're going to land. Get away from them as fast as you can. You'll see them do that again here shortly. They summoned 2 more alarums. I grabbed one because being melee, I'm going to grab the one closest to me. I'm in a pretty good position to grab them and haul them where they need to be hauled. And I looked around and I saw that somebody else had actually brought another alarum to the 2 bomb points. So I simply hauled mine off to the side where it wasn't going to be in anybody's way and killed it there. You saw them fly off, so we're forced to running to the opposite side of the arena so they can smash down again. Now another point of note is the Oppressor and the Oppressor 0.5 absolutely need to be killed at almost the exact same time. This is why generally DPS splits. Half of them will go to the 0.5, half of them will stay on the Oppressor. In my experience, it feels a lot like a lot of DPS go to the 0.5, so I personally always just stay on the Oppressor. And then watch the hate list there on the left to watch their HP going down. If one of them is getting absolutely destroyed, go fight the other one. Now you see that line actually connecting the alarum to whoever it is that he has hate on. That actually just means that that is the target that the alarum is putting those minimum stacks on. Why the main tank decided to grab hate on that alarum is beyond me. What are you gonna do? You can actually pull that off of him. It's hate, just like anything else. I can run up and smack it, and I suddenly have hate. It's not some, like, predetermined thing like we've seen before, where they show up and they just have hate on someone. But as long as you can manage that until the end of the fight, that is effectively the entirety of the fight, rinse, repeat. Here they'll come crashing down again, so we'll want to go in and continue beating on them. Want to pull them away so the tether isn't on them. Over time, you'll eventually see the bombs start to drop. Alarums will start getting... I actually checked, and if you look up at that blue laser there, that blue light where the bomb is going to drop, the bomb is just hanging up there. It's not falling or anything. It's just chilling up there. It's as soon as that light turns red, it starts actually falling. But dodge AoEs when the alarums spawn, pull them underneath the red lights, or the red lines, so that you can stop the bombs from killing everybody. Don't get hate on too many of the alarums, or you're going to get minimized, and that's going to be a bad day for everybody. I believe that's mostly just a mechanic to stop, like, the off-tank from grabbing all of them. Or for one person from grabbing all of them. But the bomb should be correctly minimized, and you don't really have to worry about much of anything. I don't even think that hit me, or hurt me, at all. And go back to beating on said bosses. Now, the Oppressor actually has a little bit more HP than the 0.5, which tells me that, for the most part, people were attacking the 0.5 more so than the Oppressor. So I'm going to stay on the Oppressor. I'm going to watch him going down. And if he gets dangerously low, and this is the point where DPS are just going to want to go, hey, he's almost dead, I'm going to kill him. I'm just going to keep dealing damage to him and not paying any attention to how much health he has left. Kill one, and then immediately kill the other one. As soon as one dies, the other one starts casting self-destruct. If you don't kill him before that destruct goes off, you wipe. Simple as that. Now for winning, you actually gain a couple of odd items. Now you can only win a lot in each of the Alexander rooms once per week, so that's 4 items per week. These items can then be turned into Rowena's crew for gear. The different numbers of these are required for the different drops, but that's something you can check simply by talking to them. Until next time, everyone.